Welcome to my next lesson around data science for beginners and kids. Focus mainly on kids so that when beginners can easily pick this thing up. So I'll be talking on pandas. This guy over here has supernatural powers, super easy to use according to me at least, and does a lot of the exploratory data analysis. So let me talk about pandas for a bit. Pandas actually stands for Python Data Analysis Library. According to the Wikipedia, the name is derived from the term panel data. So um, it's a it's an analysis library, and it's obviously based in Python. And if you want to get help from Pandas, our superpower guy, the guy with the amazing kick, you use this command called import pandas as PD. Now, pandas in Python is a module. What I mean by that is it's a code, a set of packaged code which you can call for help, right? You call this guy, call pandas, and when you call the guy, you also have to give him a nickname. And here in this example, I've given it as PD. But if you go through examples on the internet, you will see a lot of the import when they call in pandas, they use PD as the nickname. You can call it yourself, your name, it doesn't really matter. But this format, import pandas as PD, is important to get pandas into your environment. Let's move again. The next thing you have to know about pandas is this concept of a data frame. It's really it looks like a table, just in a simplistic term. It's more than a table, but it has columns and rows. To keep it simple, we just focus on the columns, which goes like this, top down, and rows, which goes like this. Okay, so you have columns and you have rows, and you have this concept called a data frame. When I explain this concept to my kids, we have a door in my study, and this door actually has it looks like this. Let me see if I can draw that out for you. It looks like pretty much like a table, you know, and has these glass panes in between, multiple glass panes in between. So if you look at this pane, and it's easy for them to I call it the door frame so they remember it. And this is a column which goes like this, and a row which goes like this, pretty much like what I just pointed out before. Okay. Uh, and here, when I define my column, you have to put these brackets, right, and define the name of the column, right? So in this case, I have name and age, and these are my columns. So bracket, close brackets, and stuff in between. Bracket, stuff, the name of the column, and followed. This is exactly what you do. Okay. So moving forward, a similar format. I have tables. You have it to define it with these brackets and define the values inside it. Comma separated. Same thing on the columns. I did a comma separation here, right? And here I have commas to separate. Here it's a text followed by age, which is a number. Text followed by age, separated by a comma. The most important thing is once you define the row, like there's one row, two rows, and it keeps on going, right? You have to you have to package these rows with these additional brackets. Remember, additional brackets to package these rows. So these are technically called lists. This is a list, this is another list, and you have a list, a super list, which encompasses all these lists inside it. So this is how we define rows. So you got columns, you got rows, right? And then you get everything together and you start building it. So how do you build it? You use PD, which is your alias for pandas, and you say, hey, pandas, let's use your magic power called data frame and get in rows and get in columns, right? So rows and columns makes up your data frame, and you have to do a prefix, which is you have to tell the data frame that this is how these are my columns, right? So columns equals this. And then as soon as you do this, you get a data frame. Okay. Now let me go into our Jupyter environment. So I just switched into my Jupyter environment. And you see here, the first command I have here is importing pandas as PD. I define my columns, name and age, comma separated. I define my rows with the names. In this case, I have Ganesh, who's 7 years old, Ankita, who's 11 years old, Thomas, William, and Roseanne with their respective ages. Obviously, you can put all these lines together like this in one row. It doesn't matter. It's just for readability so that you know these are rows, right? And after I do that, you see that I've uh, created a data frame. I call it DF under the alias. I call Panda, hey, get me the data frame with the rows and columns in it. So when I define the columns, you have to tell the data frame that these are my columns. In this case, my column names are name and age. I have two columns, one column, the second column, the first column, and the second column. And then I'm asking to print it. When you print it, you get this. You see these numbers on the side? These are indexes for rows. You can ignore them for now, but this is exactly what you get printed. I've gone further here to print this out and take this out into a file. A file, kids don't really know this. Almost all the adults know what a file is. But a file for kids, you explain it as some of these kids have access to Google and in the school, so it's a Google Doc, something where you can write in. It's very, very interesting that I have to even explain this, but some of the kids don't know what a file is because you take it for granted. But and you can, almost like a Google Doc if they know what a doc is, or a document is, or a Word document. You can write in it. And in this case, I'm going to create a comma separated value file. No kid gets this, don't get me wrong, but I have to start introducing them to this thing called a comma. What is a comma? They know what a comma is. And I said, you get to write into this file. Okay. So I do a data frame dot, there's a command called toCSV, and I push that into a CSV file. Okay. That bit is a little complicated, but what I do is I follow up and go into my projects folder. I click on one of my thing here, which is my listing files, and I have an out.csv which you see here, which I'm moving my mouse over. I click on that, and I have this, right? So exactly, pretty much what you saw in Jupyter, except you have things comma separated, right? This row is comma separated. The index of the row, name of name of that person, the age of the person. Okay. Column header, it has a comma before just to keep the index aligned, and name and age, and you got a file. And this is important for them because they're creating data. They want to know that it's created and you can store it somewhere. They get this concept of storing. Kids understand this concept of storing this information somewhere. In this case, it's a CSV file. And that's it for now. Pandas introduction with creating a data frame. I'll talk to you soon.